Hi, folks. This is Sean Hyman from The Logical Investor, and I want to talk to you about a principle found in the Bible. It's an investing principle, and it's important because sometimes there's a very divergent result in the results in life some Christians get and the results that other Christians get, and even sometimes among tithing Christians because they steward the 10% well. That's if they tithe. If they don't, they're not even stewarding hardly any of their money well, according to a biblical standard. But if they tithe, then they're stewarding 10% of their money well. But a lot of times they're not stewarding the other 90% of their money well. And so I wanted to talk to you about the parable of the talents, which in the NIV version calls it the parable of the bags of gold. And I like this version better because in America, when you think of talents, you don't think of money or investment. You think of, oh, they play the piano or the trombone well or something like that. They can sing well. But talents were not that. A talent or bag of gold, for the example of this story, was about 20 years of wages for the common man. So, when we think of one talent, we just think of one thing. But it was, like one huge bag of gold that was worth about 20 years of a person's, common average person's wages. So we're talking about a chunk of money. So when you think about that, think about the equivalent of whatever it is that you make, whether it's 30,000 a year or 300,000 a year or anything in between, whatever it is, and multiply that times 20. And you'll get kind of a good idea about what these guys were handling here when you just refer to one talent, because some of these guys were given, of course, more than one talent or one bag of gold. So Matthew 25, verse 14 says, again, it will be like a man going on a journey. What will be like that? A kingdom of heaven will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. Can God entrust wealth to you? And, my answer to that is, if you don't steward what you have well, then the answer is no, he cannot. So to one he gave 5 bags of gold. Okay, so remember, whatever you would make over a 20-year period, now multiply that times 5, and you'll have what this guy was stewarding. And to another he gave 2 bags. Of course, you know what to do there. And to another he gave 1 bag. And again, that may not sound like much, but remember, that's 20 years worth of wages. Each according to his ability. Each according to his ability. One of the key phrases right there in the whole story. So that could be encouraging or discouraging. Some people might look at it and go, well, I was only given so much ability. Well, everybody was only given so much ability or initial ability, and they can't help that. However, they can cultivate anything that they do have. So in other words, I had a knack for learning financial stuff. Well, I spent the next 26 years reading and learning and developing that financial mind to where, what was I doing? I was increasing my ability. And as you increase your ability, you can be granted more because you can steward on a different level. So there's people that can handle billions of dollars, and then there's people that can't steward and handle $100. And God knows that. And God's not stupid. So even if you're a great-hearted person, but you don't handle your personal finances well, and again, don't get into condemnation if for some reason this fits you. Just recognize something and fix it. Because getting into condemnation won't move you forward. It'll keep you in neutral or take you backwards. But we've got to learn to increase our ability. We've got to learn to steward what we have better in our personal finances. And it's the reason why we don't want to be gamblers when it comes to our investing as well. So you'll notice that I put us in very solid companies. And sure, you never know ahead of time if a company will for sure make it. But when you choose huge companies with lots of cash on the books and low debt relative to their size and low PEs, etc., you're setting yourself up for some of the more optimal scenarios that are out there. So what are we doing? we're picking wisely so that we're, one, giving God something to work with, and two, showing that we're trying to be the wise steward that's investing our bags of gold, whatever that has been entrusted to us, whether that's $5,000 or $10,000 or $5 or $10 million, and working well with what we've been given, again, according to our ability. So the good thing about that is we can increase our ability, and as we can increase our ability, we can increase what is entrusted to us. And God doesn't hold the keys to that one. We do. So God has given you your intellect. God has given you your mental capacity, which none of us have come anywhere near tapping. He's given us our talents, which none of us have fully utilized. And so the better we utilize those talents, intellect, ability, etc., the more he can give us. So then he went on his journey. The man who had received 5 bags of gold went at once and put his money to work. Notice when did he do this? Did he say, I'll get to it next week or next month, or I'll basically get around to it? No, he said he went at once. That's one of the keys. He was a man of action. And I have found that part of the keys to my success is that I didn't wonder about a lot of stuff. I didn't guess about a lot of stuff. I wasn't a woulda, shoulda, coulda guy. I was a guy who thought, let me go try X, whatever that is. And I had to be comfortable with the outcome, because failure is a part of the formula to success. If you find anybody who succeeded at anything, they had failure before they had success. So if you're scared to fail, then you will never be able to succeed. Simple example. When you first started to walk, did you fail or did you walk flawlessly at first? No, you failed a lot of times. It's called falling down, possibly crying, your parents getting you back up and encouraging you along, and eventually you walked, right? The first time that you rode a bicycle, particularly without training wheels, did you crash and burn, get your foot caught in the chain, or your knee go into the pea gravel or something like that, or did you just take off and never look back, and you've never ever had a crash on a bike ever and things went flawlessly? That might happen rarely, but that's not the case with most people. They failed first before they ever got to success. So get used to, in other words, be okay with failure. Your goal is not failure, your goal is success, but be okay in whatever you do at work, at home. Be willing to take risks and put your mind out there, your heart out there, your talents out there, your abilities out there, knowing that everything may not work out and everything doesn't have to work out. But the things that do work out can work out very, very well because you gave God something to work with. So he went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 more bags. So again, this is a ton of money that he made over time with this money. He doubled it over time. So also the one with 2 bags of gold gained 2 more. So this guy wasn't given as much, but he did as good percentage-wise with what he was given as well. Sometimes some people are initially allotted more in life than others. Some of that is stewardship, and some of it is just, where you started in life and the area you started. And, but where you started has nothing to do where you finish. I grew up poor in South Arkansas around wonderful people, but in a very economically suppressed economy. And my parents didn't know much about money, nor did a lot of my relatives, and I had to start digging stuff out the hard way. Had I not been willing to work, toil, buy books so that I could get mentoring through those books, ask questions of financially successful people, and then shut my mouth and listen and take notes, I would have never come to where I'm at. So the man who received 1 bag went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. So he did nothing with it. So he was allotted something, he was given something, and he did nothing with it. So some people always say, well, why does so-and-so have something and it doesn't seem like I have anything? Well, if you look closely, usually at the people that have something, they didn't spend it all. They saved some. They stewarded it well by retiring some debt, investing some money. And over time, the people who did that versus the people who just dug a hole in the ground and basically peed their money away, they still don't have anything. So after a long time, see, investments take a while. After a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. The man who had received 5 bags of gold brought the other 5. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 5 bags of gold. See, I've gained 5 more. By the way, look at his term of honor. Honor is one of the keys to your success. Sometimes people say, well, I'll give honor if honor is deserved. No, you should give honor because you are honorable. Learned that from my pastor, and that will help you a lot in business. If you have a boss that you think's a jerk, guess what? For some reason, he is presently over you, or she is presently over you. And you should give honor because of their office, their title, because they have been entrusted that position by somebody above you. And no matter what you think of them, you should give honor. If you own a business, guess who you should honor? If we own a business, we need to honor our customer because they are the reason why we are able to have a thriving business in the first place. So you entrusted me with the 5 bags of gold, and see, I've gained 5 more. His master said, what did he say? Well done. People who invest well over time, they save money, they get their personal finances in order, they retire debt, they invest. What's told to them? Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful with a few things, I'll put you in charge of many things. This is also a story about the kingdom of heaven, and so Jesus is saying this is what it'll be like. So hey, we may be over just a few things here on this earth. That might be a few assets, car, house, whatever. We need to steward that well. It might be over just a little bit of money, might be over a ton of money, but relative to what heaven has to offer, I assure you it's still few. But if we do well with that here on earth, there's a chance. And again, we don't know everything eternity will hold. We're told some about heaven in the Bible, but not everything. But he says, I'll put you in charge of many things. So we should steward well while we're here on this earth. And that will even pay dividends, I believe, even on into eternity. It doesn't earn us salvation. Salvation is the free gift through Jesus Christ. But stewarding is something that God's not going to do for us, and that's something that we have to do. And then He rewards those efforts. So if you find that you don't have a lot, or you think, well, I don't have a lot of money to invest, or I don't have much money anyway, so no need in stewarding it. Well, if you think that way, you'll never have a lot of money, because that's just how that works. I was teaching a man in my Bible study this past week. He came early and started talking to me about some things, and he started basically kind of talking about stuff that is really pretty much a gamble. It's you either lose it all or might gain some. And I said, as long as you have a speculative spirit, you're not gonna likely have much. Look at the parable of the talents. And his thoughts were, well, since I don't have much, I might as well speculate with what I got because I don't hardly have anything anyway. But the biblical principle is, you got to be faithful over little, and God will put you over much. So you're never going to have much if you're not faithful over little, no matter how little that little is. Come and share in your master's happiness. So this guy was fair. He really was. And he blessed these guys that did well. The man who had 2 bags of gold also came. Master, he said, again, showing honor, you entrusted me with 2 bags of gold. See, I've gained 2 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. Again, he got the same reward and outcome and same attaboy and pat on the back as a guy who had over double what he had been given to him. So it's not so much that, one believer's got 5 million that they're sitting over and you've got 5,000. Deal well with what you've got, and guess what? The good news is you can still hear well done and good and faithful servant. You've been faithful with a few things, and I'll put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. Again, told the exact same thing, yet he proportionately had so much less than what the first guy had been given. Now, he could have bellyached. He could have said, hey, you gave him 5, you only gave me 2. That ain't fair. We need to get the union together and protest. He could have gotten that way. He could have gotten on the bitter side of life, the dishonorable side of life. He could have played the victim. He could have made it all about him. Why so-and-so get $100,000 a year and I only get 50? Why does that guy get that position at work and I don't have my shot at it? So don't be the victim. Don't play the blame game. Uh, Entrust your future to God and put it in His hands. Give your tithes and offerings to your local church. Be a faithful servant wherever you in your business, whether you own that business or whether you serve somebody else through a paycheck, through being an employee at another business. Give honor to everybody from the CEO to all those above you to employees below you. Honor up and honor down, and to the customer base in which you serve, and it will change your career, not over one day, but over your lifetime, over 5 and 10 year periods. You'll look back and go, man, that outlook changed, that attitude changed, that changed my life. So speaking of attitudes, then the man who had received 1 bag of gold came. Master, he said, I knew that you're a hard man. In other words, this ain't all about me and what I see. I didn't really have something good to work with because see, you're a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid. So what's the person who does nothing with what they've been given? They're fear-based. They're afraid, and they're also blamers. So anytime you become the victim, anytime you play the blame game, well, I'd be further along in life if my boss had recognized me. If I'd grown up at this side of the tracks or in this city or with these kind of parents, or if my parents would have money, I'd have something today, or what have you. Any kind of blame game that you give, just know that it's basically you've kicked yourself in neutral and you can't really move forward as far as really God entrusting more to you because you've done what the one servant does. So he blamed and he was fearful. So don't be fear-based. Go forth in faith. Fear just cancels out your faith. So we live a life of faith. We get saved by grace and faith. And the whole Christian walk is a life of faith, including what you do with your money and your personal finances and your investments and your employment. So I was afraid and went out and hid. So what do people that don't do anything in life do? They blame, they're afraid, and they hide. I hid your gold in the ground. They just bury it. They bury their talents. They bury the intellect God's given them. They bury any growth that they could have had. They bury it in the blame game and in fear and just hiding it. So see, here's what belongs to you. In other words, this all you had coming back to you is what you gave me in the first place. His master replied, you wicked and lazy servant. Wicked and lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I haven't sown and gathered, where I have not scattered seed, ? So he's not even saying necessarily that he does per se. But this is your perception of me. Because again, these two guys up above, they didn't have that same perception. And they went out and doubled the money over time and got rewarded for it. Well then, you should have put my money on deposit with the banker so that when I returned, I would have received it back with interest. In other words, if you hadn't invested it and really tried to do something with it, grow a business or invest it in something like today we would use stocks or real estate for, you should at least, put money in the bank and so it could draw some interest, he said. So take the bag of gold from him and give it to the one who has 10 bags. Now wait a minute. This isn't the American way. That's not fair at all. What you'll find is God's not American. Here's what's fair. He had equal opportunity to do with his 1 bag like the one that was given the 2 or 5 bags. That's where fair came in. He chose to have a different outlook, to be lazy, to do nothing. The other ones worked. He did nothing. And so he's supposed to have something better? He's supposed to have any reward at all? Of course not. So take the bag from him and give it to the one who has 10 bags. Isn't that amazing? You'd think, well, why give it to the one who had the most? I mean, after all, he don't need it. Give it to the one that had 5 that doubled that. The one that had 2 and doubled it. And we rationalize. But again, the one who had been the steward over the most ended up getting that bag. For whosoever has will be given to him. and they that and they will have an abundance. And whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them. So our job is to get to where we have something in life. And I know that's not proper English. But to whoever has will be given more. So it's our job to get to where we have something in life, to where we save up some money. God, there's no reason for God to give us anything if we haven't done anything in our own efforts to try to do something for ourselves. Why should He? If you look in the Bible, almost every miracle that God did required some action. It required faith and an action on the behalf of the person at hand. Stretch the rod out, then the waters part. Walk around the walls, then they fall down. On and on and on I could go. And so, go dip in the river, and then you'll be healed. So there's something that there's something that man's got to do, and there's something that God's got to do. And God's not going to do man's part, and man certainly cannot do God's part. But where the holdup is not on God. A lot of people say, well, I'm waiting on God. No, I assure you, God is waiting on us. In my 29 years of studying the Word and listening to sermons and, being in the ministry and going to Bible school and all those things, collectively, all of that has taught me that we are the weak link in the chain. And I promise you, God is waiting on us. So, because God will never do what we can do for ourselves. He's not going to just make money magically appear in our account. We've got to go out and work for it and save and pay down debts and invest. And as we do these types of things, which are scriptural principles, if you don't believe saving's a scriptural principle, look in Proverbs. I believe it's 6:6, 6 through 8. So in chapter 6, verses 6 through 8, where it talks about the ant and the savings principle and storing up. So there's a lot of biblical principles, and if you want more on that, just Google my book, The 6 Keys to Financial Success. And again, it's very inexpensive. It's not a pitch. It's not the whole point of this story as to whether you buy that book or not. I'm not worried about that. But if you want more in-depth teaching on that, go check that out. So for whoever has will be given more. And how do we say it here in America? Well, the rich get richer, and the poor get poorer. That's how we say it here in America. So in other words, it's an acknowledgement of those who have seem to end up getting more, and those in an abundance, and those who don't seem to have what little they have taken from them. So it's a scriptural principle that people may not like. It's like gravity. You may not like it, but it's here. I mean, you can say, I don't like gravity, and jump up. Guess what? You're coming back down to earth. So you can look at this one of two ways. You can say, well, that isn't fair. I don't like that. I don't think I agree with that. Guess what? Here's what I've learned about the Bible. It don't matter whether you or I agree with it at all. It's still true. But if I will align my thinking with its thinking, I can have great results in life. Or I can be the typical American that's got very opinionated and think I've got a voice for saying everything. And I can debate everything, even God's Word in the Bible. And guess what? I will fall short in life. So I can view it this way. Okay, here's the principle. Whoever has will be given more. All right, it's my job to get out there to where I have something in life so that God can then do His part to give me more as I steward what little I have. And He can turn that over time, over the years, it's not instant, into an abundance. Or I can squander everything I've got and just kind of pee it away, and then I can blame God and everybody else, the government and God and my employer and my boss, and I can talk about, somebody could talk about their boss. Oh, my boss, I knew he was a hard man and, wicked, and you can judge them on their character, or you can go to work with what you've been entrusted, whether they're a believer or not. Remember, this master, he might not have been a believer. It's possible he was not so good in his business deal. Who knows? The one accused him, the other two didn't, so we don't know for sure. But even if he was, two people were still able to have a successful result, whether he was or whether he wasn't. So here's what I found. No matter how your boss is, your CEO is, the head of your franchise is, whatever it is that you work for or have worked for, has very little bearing on whether God can bless you in what you do. But if you honor. Again, their term then was master, but it was a term of endearment, honor, respect. Um, so if you honor, if you work hard, if you invest, if instead of being fear based, you're faith based, and instead of hiding, you go out there and you take some action and you take some risk in life,